go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to On the Case with me, Detective Alex Cardinale. Welcome to this week's crime case. Today, I, Detective Alex Cardinale, am going to be talking about a crime case that is nearly 20 years old. Today's crime took place in December of 2002. So that is almost 20 years ago. And today's crime actually shocked America because it put the spotlight on the evil that online predators can cause on online chat rooms. You see, back in 2002, online chat rooms were just becoming popular. You had sites like AOL, Yahoo Messenger, etc. And in 2002, with the introduction of the internet, more and more young teenagers and young people were getting online and using these chat rooms to communicate with people that they have never met in real life. And unfortunately, there is a group of people who take advantage of these naive young children that use the online chat rooms. And those people are known as online predators, aka pedophiles. And today's crime case is one of the first featured abduction that was committed by a online predator and a pedophile, and it was one of the first to ever get national media attention from all around the United States of America. This week's crime case was featured on Investigation Discovery series Web of Lies, as well as other crime shows as well. So this week's crime took place in Arkansas. Kacie Woody was an American teenage girl who was catfished, abducted, and murdered by 47-year-old David Leslie Fuller from California, who she met online. So today we're going to talk about the Kacie Woody abduction and murder case. Now, 20 years later, catfishing is still a thing. A lot of people pretend to be somebody else online, and in reality, pedophiles are still out there even to this day. And unfortunately, there has been a lot of abductions and also more murders by more of these pedophiles, sadly. So we're going to find out all the details about this horrific case. Now, should you have any questions or you want to share your thoughts on this case, please feel free to do so in the comments. Having said that, let's go ahead and get this show started. And we're going to start with some details about this case. So we're going to start by learning about our victim. And our victim is 13-year-old Kacie Woody. And here is a picture of our victim. This is our victim, 13-year-old Kacie Woody, who was abducted from her home in Arkansas, raped, and then later murdered. She was only 13 years old, and that is our victim. So let's learn about her. Kacie was born on October 17th, 1989. So her birthday is October 17th, 1989. And she was born at Baptist Medical Center in Little Rock, Arkansas, to Rick and Christy Woody. She had two brothers, Austin and Tim. On June 19th, 1997, when Kacie was 7 years old, her mother, Christy, was killed in a car accident while the family was on their way home from Tim's baseball game. Her mother died in a car accident when they were on their way home from her brother's baseball game. The car collided with a horse that had run into the road, which shattered the windshield and hit Christy, who was sitting in the passenger seat. Everyone else in the vehicle survived, although Rick, who was driving, suffered broken ribs. In 2002, Kacie lived in Holland, Arkansas, with Rick, who was her father, Tim, who was her brother, and Tim's friend Eric Betts. Her maternal aunt, Teresa Paul, lived next door. Paul's daughter and Kacie's cousin, Jonah, died in a car accident like Christy in 1994 at the age of 17. Kacie was a student at Greenbrier Middle School and a member of the band, tour, and gifted and talented programs. The Woody home was in a rural, heavily wooded area, and due to many outgoing calls being long distance, Kacie's father allowed Kacie to use instant messaging on the computer to keep in touch with her friends. She registered on Yahoo Messenger with either the username Model Behavior 63 or Model Behavior 36. Accounts vary. Kacie eventually started using chat rooms to meet new friends. And on either New Year's Eve 2001, according to Web of Lies, which is an investigation discovery series, or in the summer of 2022, according to the written documentary Caught in the Web, she befriended Jasmine D.F., who claimed to be a 17-year-old boy named Dave Fagen in a Yahoo Christian teen chat room. The photo on Jasmine D.S. profile was of a surfer dude type attractive young man. He claimed to love surfing and the beach, and the two bonded quickly and began to chat often. Kacie eventually told David about the loss of her mother, and typical online predator move, trying to get sympathy from his potential prey, Dave Fagen told Kacie that his aunt, who also happened to live in Arkansas, was recently in a car accident and now comatose and wasn't expected to live much longer. Kacie felt bad about Dave's aunt and told her family and friends about him and the situation. Her friends Sam and Jessica also befriended Dave and added him to their buddy list. At the same time, Sam in particular was fearful over Kacie's naivety and warned her about becoming close to and falling in love with people that she hadn't met in person. Since Kacie's father, Rick, worked long hour swing shifts as a police officer with the Green Bear Police Department, he often wasn't home to monitor her internet activity. Although he stated during his Web of Lies interview that at the time he wasn't aware, he actually was aware she was talking to boys online. That's what he said. He was aware. However, he wasn't very afraid as long as he knew that she was at home and the boys were elsewhere. Around the summer of 2002, when Kacie told him that Dave was turning 18, Rick told her that he was too old for her and to stop talking to him. In reality, he was 47. Although Kacie told Dave about this, she disobeyed Rick and began talking to Dave over the phone, despite the long distance call issue. So in my mind, that begs a couple of questions. How does a 47-year-old man portray a voice of a 17, 18-year-old man? Very, very interesting. Maybe Kacie was too naive to notice that the voice sounded old. One night, likely in the autumn of 2002, Dave called Kacie while Jessica was spending the night at Kacie's house. During this, the girls heard strange sounds around the outside of the house and a floorboard squeak in the kitchen as if an intruder was on the property. The girls rushed into Kacie's bedroom and blocked the door with a dresser. Kacie told Dave that she was afraid someone was in the house. He told her that nobody was in the house and not to worry, and then the noises stopped. Sam was skeptical of Dave's age because of his use of outdated slang, using terms such as groovy and far out. Wow, groovy is such a really old term. I don't even use that word. Kacie assumed this was simply because he came from California and that people there talk differently than in Arkansas. At some point, Kacie met another boy in a chat room. His username was Taz2999. He claimed to be a 14-year-old named Scott from Georgia who loves football and wrestling. The photo on his profile was of a young teen boy in a football uniform. Kacie and Scott began dating on October 3rd, 2002. When Dave learned about the relationship, he wanted to remain friends with Kacie, but he began talking about his aunt and her worsening condition more. On the morning of Tuesday, December 3rd, 2002, Sam noticed that Kacie had the photo from Scott's profile in her locker. She told her that he was hot, which Kacie misheard as fat. Kacie became angry and the two began arguing. When Sam asked Kacie how she got the photo, she told her that Scott had mailed it to her. Alarmed over the fact that this meant Kacie had given Scott her address, Sam warned her again about giving her address to people that she had never met in person and told her that Scott could be an 80-year-old rapist and that the photo could be of his grandson. Kacie did not take this warning seriously, and without her knowledge, Sam told the school counselor, Diane Keller, about how Kacie was giving out her phone numbers to strangers online. Keller later called Kacie into her office, where she warned her about the dangers of the internet and told her not to meet any online friends in person without a parent present. Kacie responded that she only gave her phone number to people her father approved, which Sam disbelieved. Keller then called Sam to the office and left her and Kacie alone to talk, and the girls reconciled. When school ended, Kacie asked Sam if she could spend a night at her house. Sam said no because her mother likely would not have allowed a sleepover on a school night, and Kacie would have had needed a written note from her father in order to be allowed to be dropped off at Sam's house. Kacie then asked her other friends before being turned down. She was not upset about the refusals and told her friends goodbye before boarding the school bus. Her friends found it unusual that Kacie asked about a sleepover on a school night. And that was the last time that any of Kacie's friends would ever speak to Kacie, would ever see Kacie, or hear from Kacie ever again. So before we talk about her abduction and murder, let's learn about the pedophile, the online predator, and the perpetrator, David Fuller, who was the king of manipulation because he manipulated a 13-year-old girl into thinking he was an attractive 17-year-old man from California. So, David Leslie Fuller was born on January 18th, 1955, in Salt Lake City, Utah. He was the fourth and youngest child of Edward and June Fuller. His parents were devout Mormons. David Fuller was a quiet and reserved child and did not perform very well in school. After graduating from Skyline High School, he went on to play guitar in several different rock bands. At age 19, he married an unidentified girl and moved with her to Moab, although they ended their marriage shortly after. He met Sally Krenz, his wife at the time of his death, in the early 1980s while he played bass guitar at a local bar. They married on May 21st, 1983, and moved to Salt Lake City. David Fuller became a Navy Seabee in 1989 before the couple moved to Gulfport, Mississippi, in which state they had a son. They later moved to Maryland, where they had a daughter, and then to San Diego. The children were 11 and 7 years old at the time of David Fuller's death and the time of his crime. The family moved to La Mesa around 1997, and Fuller left the Navy 2 years later. As the marriage went on and David Fuller and Sally began social drinking less, David developed anger problems and mood swings. He also eventually began spending long hours online and taking nighttime walks around the neighborhood while talking on the phone. In June 2002, Sally obtained paperwork from a divorce workshop while Fuller took the children to visit his parents. When he returned, he was very angry to learn this. In August of that year, Child Protective Services of California investigated a report that David Fuller had been showering with his daughter. It was eventually concluded that this was untrue. Sometime after he got his own apartment, still in La Mesa, he was charged with spousal abuse after he had returned to Sally's home one night, shoved and screamed at her, and then unlocked the bedroom door with a screwdriver after she locked herself and the children inside. He had also been arrested once and fined for indecent exposure after exposing himself to two young girls, and he had been fired from his job as a used car salesman after being caught watching porn, child porn, on the work computer. Police also discovered that David Fuller had also visited visited Arkansas twice before, both times in the fall of 2002. The first time he'd flown into Clinton National Airport on October 11th, rented a car from Adams Field, and checked into a Motel 6 in Conway. It is believed that he spied on Kacie and her home during the trip. He bought a gun on November 2nd, telling his children that he needed it for target practice. 2 days later, he again flew to Little Rock, Arkansas, rented a car, and checked in at the Motel 6, extending his stay on November 8th. On November 6th, he had visited Guard Smith looking for the largest unit available and telling an on-site manager that he had bought vehicles and needed a place to temporarily store them. Authorities speculated that he had planned to abduct Kacie at this time, but was unable to. After that, Fuller bought duct tape, chain, and zip ties from his local Home Depot in California, and he obtained a bottle of chloroform from a chemical supply company. He then packed his supplies in his Buick Regal before driving to Arkansas and succeeding in abducting Kacie. And that is the information on the pedophile and the online predator, David Fuller. All right, so now we know about the victim and the perpetrator. Now let's learn about the crime. Let's learn about the abduction and the murder. So let's talk about it right now. So, on the evening of December 3rd, 2002, Kacie was home alone while her brother was doing research at his college's library. His brother's friend was at his electrician's class, and her father was on duty in Green Bay. In addition, her aunt was at her daughter's basketball game in Conway. Kacie was at home instant messaging with Scott on the computer while talking to Dave over the phone. Dave told Kacie that his aunt's condition continued to worsen and that he was driving to Arkansas to be by her side until she passed away. At 9:41 p.m., Kacie's messages with Scott suddenly stopped. Scott quickly became concerned and continued to message Kacie in an attempt for her family or Bets to see. He emailed Jessica and attempted to call the Woody house, all to no avail. When her brother's friend returned home at about 10:15 p.m. and noticed that Kacie wasn't around, he assumed she was in bed or out with family or friends and continued his normal activities. When her brother returned home around 11:40 p.m. and noticed that Kacie wasn't in bed, he called her father, who raced home in a squad car. Rick noticed that the house showed signs of forced entry. Kacie's reading glasses that she used on the computer, which was still on with the chat window between her and Scott still open, were damaged with the lens missing, and her pet Yorkshire Terrier was limping. He called Kacie's friends who hadn't recently heard from or seen her and called for backup. Either Tim or his friend instant message either Tim or his friend instant messaged with Scott and learned about Kacie's conversation with Dave and how she suddenly stopped responding to Scott's text. Investigators initially considered the possibility that Kacie had run away, which Rick denied, stating that she was happy with her life and would not leave the house without telling him. He had last spoken to her around 7 p.m. that evening. When he had called to check in on her, she had been practicing her saxophone and nothing had seemed unusual. It was noticed that Kacie's coats and shoes were left behind when temperatures that night were above 30 degrees Fahrenheit with rain, leading authorities to suspect an abduction. A massive investigation involving the FBI, the Arkansas State Police, every law enforcement agency in Faulkner County, police dogs, and dozens of volunteers was launched. A level 2 Morgan Nick alert was issued at 5:14 a.m. Investigators seized the Woody computer and questioned students and staff at Green Bear Middle School and were told about Scott and Dave by Kacie's friends. FBI agent Jerry Spurgers also discovered discarded notes containing the two males' names in Kacie's trash can. Scott's computer was traced to his home in Georgia. FBI visited the property where his mother answered the door. Scott's parents were unaware of who Kacie was or even that he had a girlfriend. However, FBI determined that Scott had given his true identity online and was at home when Kacie disappeared, and he was cleared of suspicion. Investigators learned from Kacie's friends that Dave had told her he was en route to Arkansas from California at the time she disappeared. They launched a search around the local area for clues about him, and at a Conway Motel 6, they discovered a 1993 Buick Regal with a California license plate. Detectives learned that it belonged to a man named David Fuller who had checked in on December 2nd and booked his stay for a week, requested no maid service, and had complained to the staff about not being able to connect to the internet from his room, which he had become very angry over. When the detectives searched his room, they found Fuller's packed suitcase, laptop, camouflage clothing, rubber gloves, and that the bed had not been slept in. After checking with the Conway Enterprise Rent-A-Car, where an employee stated that Fuller had behaved strangely and repeatedly went outside to smoke while filling out paperwork, detectives subpoenaed his paperwork. They learned that his phone number matched one repeatedly dialed from the Woody home, that he rented a silver Dodge Caravan minivan, and that his credit card had been charged by Guard Smith Storage in Conway. Fuller was confirmed to be Dave, and at this point he was upgraded from a person of interest to a suspect in Kacie's disappearance. Conway Police Sergeant Jim Barrett and two FBI agents arrived at Fuller's unit at Guard Smart at around 6 p.m. on December 4th. The door was down and did not have a lock, and when it was lifted, they noticed the silver Dodge Caravan inside, forward facing with its engine running. When Barrett began to enter the unit, a single gunshot rang inside. The pedophile coward committed suicide. Law enforcement ran for cover and called for backup while shouting commands for whoever was inside to surrender the weapon and emerge with their hands up with no result. When a SWAT team arrived around 8:30 p.m., they stormed the unit. David Fuller had shot himself in the head when Barrett had lifted the unit's door. His body was found laying on the floor behind the minivan, still holding a 9mm Luger, and along with the van's back seats. Barrett found Kacie's body lying supine in the back of the minivan with her wrist and ankles chained to the four corners of the van's floor. David Fuller had raped her before shooting her in the head. Also found was a half-empty bottle of chloroform in a rag next to Kacie's head. Although Kacie's time of death could not be agreed upon, it was determined that she had been deceased for hours, and a medical examiner concluded that she had likely been unconscious from the chloroform from when she was abducted to when she was murdered. Very, very sad case. It is very tragic, it is very awful, and it is very sad that David Fuller was able to be successful in not only abducting but raping Kacie Woody and then murdering her. Very, very sad and very sick. I hope David Fuller is rotting in hell where that piece of shit belongs for harming an innocent 13-year-old girl. I could never in my wildest dreams ever think about harming a child because I'm not a pedophile or a predator or anything like that. It is just absolutely sick and disgusting. So, a new segment that I want to do on the crime show, my series on the case with Alex Cardinale, I want to talk about what this crime has taught us. And this week, it has taught us that we should be very careful when talking to strangers online. We don't know the person's interest when we're communicating with someone online. We don't know if they want to abduct us, if they want to rape us or murder us. We don't know if they're a good person or if they're a bad person. So, what I think the Kacie Woody case taught America and the world is to be very suspicious and to be very cautious. We should always, always, always have our guard up, and we should never let our guard down. So I'm not saying don't communicate with people online. What I am saying, though, is you always have to have it in the back of your mind that the person that you're talking to or one of your kids is talking to could be the next David Fuller. It could be a next pedophile or online predator. And like I said earlier on in the show, this is one of the very first nationally media talked about abductions that happened online because in 2002 the internet was relatively new. So when people learned that this crime happened because a predator was on online chat groups, they were shocked. They were disgusted, of course. But then they got serious about online protection and protecting their kids online. And over the next couple of months, we're going to continue looking back at the early 2000s, and we're going to continue seeing a trend of online predators being successful in getting prey because of how naive most people were in the era of 2000 to 2010 because a lot of people thought the internet was a safe place. They thought it was a place where they could go meet people from all over the world, communicate with them, and they thought that, well, this guy's not a pedophile, he's not a murderer, but you never know. You never know. And the online world makes it so easy for these criminals to get on there and prey up on these young children. So always, always have it in the back of your mind that the person you're communicating with online could be a very dangerous individual. All right. So I'm going to conclude today's episode with my thoughts on this case. My thoughts and prayers go to the Kacie Woody family. In December of this year, it will mark 20 years that their 13-year-old daughter, their sister, their friend, and their family member was taken from them. That is a long time. Now, I'm not sure if the father is still alive or if the brothers or friends are still alive. I'm sure they are, but it has to affect them somehow. So my thoughts and prayers go out to them. I'm terribly sorry that Kacie Woody had to be a victim in this case. Very, very sad and tragic and terrible. I just wish that back in 2002 there were more safety precautions to prevent this sort of stuff. But it did kind of teach us a lesson that we needed to know. It taught us we need to be safe when working online. But David Fuller definitely had the symptoms of being a pedophile. He lured poor Kacie into trusting him. He got sympathy from Kacie by lying to her about his sick, dying aunt, and he actually told her he was coming to Arkansas, so he kind of got her hopes up into thinking she was going to meet a 17-year-old attractive man. But in doing that, it actually opened up Kacie's. It actually made her more naive because she thought she was going to meet a real life Dave Fagen, who was 17 and attractive. And had she had known the dangers of the internet, this probably would not have happened. Very sad, very tragic case, an awful case. I would not wish this upon anybody. And the reason I decided to talk about it today is because I want people to know the dangers of the internet. So don't always think the internet is good. There are plenty of bad things that happen on the internet. All right, that is this week's episode of On the Case with me, Detective Alex Cardinale. I know it's been a few weeks hiatus, but I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad that I educated you guys on this horrific crime case. Next week, we're going to talk about a shooting rampage, a neighbor feud. Fear thy neighbor, right? Well, that's the TV series from ID Discovery. And we're going to talk about one of the neighborly disputes that was on that TV show. Next week, we're going to talk about Roland Younce and the neighborly shooting rampage that Roland did. He shot at a handicapped individual, he shot at a little girl, and he shot at police officers before he got killed by a police officer. And the reason for the shooting rampage, one of the victims shot and killed his dog, a man's best friend. So I guess when you lose your best friend, it can turn you into a complete psycho, so bad that you can turn into a killer. So next Monday, join me to learn about the Roland Younce neighborly shooting rampage. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale. With that being said, thank you for watching today's episode of On the Case with Detective Alex Cardinale. If you see something, say something. If you see a crime happening, call 911 and report it. You never know, you could save a life. Detective Alex Cardinale saying, have a great week. Thank you for watching and stay safe, everybody. Hey everyone, legendary Alex Cardinale here. And guess what? Together, you, my audience, and I are celebrating history once more this year. Can you guys believe that on June 12th, I will be celebrating my 700th video? Yes, that's right. June 12th, I will be hosting my 700th video. I remember my 500th and my 600th video like it was yesterday. You, the audience, make me put out these awesome videos and I lose count. I prefer quality over quantity, but in this case, quantity is quality. I'm enjoying hosting these videos for you. So I, legendary Alex Cardinale, am extremely proud to invite you to be a part of the 700th video celebration. It is going down live Sunday, June 12th, 2022 at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, right here on my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale. I cannot wait to host the 700th video. It is going to be a blast. Chef Alex Cardinale is going to be in the house, and he's going to be cooking and baking. Watch Chef Alex make a delicious homemade French onion soup. And for dessert, Chef Alex will teach you how to make creme brulee, a really delicious pudding-like dessert. So Chef Alex goes French for the 700th video, as he'll show you how to make a delicious French onion soup and creme brulee. That's going to be really delicious. You guys all know that I work at the Palm Beach Zoo, and something special that I'm doing to celebrate 700 videos. I am going to enter the lorikeet loft at Palm Beach Zoo and hand feed lorikeets on video for my 700th video. That is going to be fantastic and definitely legendary. Now, of course, you can't have a party without aquariums and tropical fish. And you can't talk about aquariums and tropical fish without the man himself, Aqua Alex. Aqua Alex will give you a tour of one of his favorite local fish stores. Plus, will Aqua Alex get new fish? And there may also be aquarium topics talked about by Aqua Alex Cardinale. Also, relive the best moments on this YouTube channel. I will play 7 of my best moments from my YouTube channel over the last 699 videos. There will also be other surprises. Will there be any legendary appearances? We shall find out. And who will be special guests if there are any special guests? Will there be a chef? Will there be a fish keeping guest? We will have to find out. So mark your calendars, ladies and gentlemen, and all my loyal subscribers. The legendary Alex Cardinale YouTube channel celebrates 700 videos live Sunday, June 12th, 2022 at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Come celebrate history, have some fun, and watch a fun celebration Sunday, June 12th, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Thank you, everybody, for making this a possibility, and I look forward to my next party. I'll see you on the 700th video celebration party, June 12th, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, right here on my YouTube channel.